Hi, welcome to another edition of Socrates Explains Everything. My name is Socrates, and I like to explain things, especially with a nice backdrop and boat. They're cool. I wanted to revisit an earlier discussion about climate change and the Sabatier reaction. I did a little more research, and it's disappointing to know how technologically easy it is to fix climate change. We've had the technology since about 1900. I mean, the Sabatier reaction was invented in 1897, and another thing called the Fischer Tropsch process, 1925. Basically, it's a way of taking a carbon source, usually coal, and converting it into synthetic fuels. Kerosene, methanol, pretty much any petrochemical you can make out of this, because hydrocarbons is what crude oil is. It's carbon and hydrogen. So as long as you have hydrogen and you have carbon, you can make fuel out of this stuff. In fact, the Germans in World War II under Nazi Germany, they powered a lot of the war machine using synthetic fuel based on the liquefaction of coal and the Fischer Tropsch process, amongst others, to make synthetic fuel for airplanes and gasoline for cars. Apparently, with the same input of carbon and hydrogen, with a little tweaking, you can make 74% gasoline or 74% aviation gas, which is kerosene. So the technology is there to turn carbon into fuel. Capitalism is always a problem, because capitalism, it's got to somehow make a profit, which is just foolish in its own sense. I mean, by definition, that means you're squeezing one end and screwing the other end, and I don't know how either of those things are good, but okay. So we're stuck with capitalism at this point. It seems like there's a huge opportunity for whoever starts to capture this carbon and convert it into fuel, because that's the next not exactly crude oil, but the next energy source is going to be carbon captured out of the atmosphere. Because at this point, what we need to do is suck carbon from the atmosphere, getting us back to around 1970s, 80s levels, warmer than it should be, but less cold than, less hot than it is now. And then what do you do with that carbon? Because we could turn it into calcium carbonate, basically a rock, and then we would waste this wonderful opportunity. Well, we could turn it into fuel and just simply cycle the carbon from the atmosphere into the fuel tanks and then back in the atmosphere as needed. You could store it as methane or kerosene for indefinite amounts of time. The technology is there. All we need to do is build really cool machines that suck the carbon out. And they've been invented as well. It's just a matter of scaling up the process. And of course, turning it profitable somehow. Or at the very least, acknowledging the fact that capitalism has essentially failed us, left us with this very unfair, unhealthy, unsafe world that has no long-term planning whatsoever, and just basically randomizing, lurching from war to war, catastrophe to catastrophe. Great if you're a psychopath or a sociopath and likes to see the world burn, but it's not so good if you're not. Anyway, it's really, really sunny as hell out here. This is the middle of September 2020. I'm in Amsterdam with no jacket. So for us, global warming is not so bad. One of the few places it's kind of nice. Assuming the sea doesn't come up so high that we then get flooded, because that would be bad, because I'm also about 40 foot below sea level. But nothing good comes without something bad. Anyway, that's the end of the video.